Welcome back to Talking Risks. It's a podcast about taking risks. Every week, Ricky and I have an entrepreneur on who talks about his or her beginnings and challenges and losses and victories and really how they're building their legacies. And we hope that in doing so, we'll get more educated with respect to entrepreneurship, building our own legacies, and we hope that we can provide some strategies and education to the listeners because Ricky and I are big on trying to help others build their legacies, build their businesses. So I am Eric Reese. I'm a co-host of this. I'm a lawyer, own a law firm called Aspen Legal at aspenlawteam.com. Ricky is my co-host. Ricky
Hall. I am the founder of Nutrition HQ and Nutrition HQ Franchising.
And the best part of our show is Cassandra is our guest. Cassandra?
I am Cassandra Sherrio, and I own and operate St. Louis Marketing Consultants.
And Cassandra doesn't know this yet, but we are going to pick her brain very hard today about a whole bunch of stuff that I'm unfamiliar with, always had people for. When I was at the big firms, the only thing I was convinced is that they didn't know what the hell they were doing. So I certainly don't know what I'm doing with respect to social media marketing, but Cassandra does. So we're going to really learn a ton from her today. But first, we're going to talk about hot topics.
Hot topics.
Our hot topic today is really back to partners. And I got a hair on my microphone. It's driving me nuts. It's either on my microphone or on my lips, all right? If it's on my lips, if I pull it, it may be a task. At 58, you start getting hair where you shouldn't get, out your ears and out your navel and all sorts of gross places. And my wife just typically sees it. She goes, "Beep!" And it's like, oh my God, that hurt. But nonetheless, I want to talk today, Ricky, about really partners and the alignment or misalignment of business philosophies, of strategies, etc. This happens more than I'd like to remember from all of the partners that I've had in various businesses that have not gone all that well, including some law firms. You really need to figure out, does your overall business philosophy really align? All right, so for me, and I'll start with mine. Don't rip off your client. Okay, that's a basic philosophy. Don't expect them to just pay more and more and more each year for the same old tired service. And if you're in business with someone who believes that that is not something that we should do, that we should just continually increase the fees, and of course I'm talking about lawyers in general, then it's probably somebody that you shouldn't be a partner with. So business, I'll call it an overall business philosophy. You've got to have alignment.
You have to have alignment, and it will make or break your business. And fighting with a business partner is one of the toughest things to go through. Miserable.
It turns something good or potentially good into just drudgery every day.
Oh, it can be a nightmare. And I've been fortunate enough that I've had 2 or 3 business partners, and four, and I've only had one that worked out.
Yeah, and it's a little bit like marriage in the sense that you really don't know. Well, you in particular. Sorry, I've got an ex-wife too. Not 2 ex-wives like Ricky, but I do have one. 2.5. But again, you really don't know how it's going to work out, even in a business partnership where you're not sharing a bed or you're not sharing kids or what have you. You really don't know how it's going to work out until you're actually in business together. I do understand that, but I do think it comes down to trying to address up front, and people may not be all that honest because they may want in your deal, right? So they're telling you what you want to hear, but addressing as much as you can up front. I'm not talking about the operating agreement or shareholder agreement. I'm talking about talking about, well, what is your overall philosophy? How much do you want to scale this business? How much do you believe that each of us should actually participate in the business. These things have to be discussed. Otherwise, don't be surprised that you are surprised down the road.
Yeah, and I think you also have to identify what lane each business partner needs to be in, and then you need to stay in your lane and stay out of the way of the other business partner.
Yeah, right. And so what I'm not talking about is a delegation or an assignment of tasks. Okay, so Ricky and I are partners with respect to this podcast, and I think we both have the same general philosophy. I know we have the same philosophy regarding life, politics, etc. That certainly helps, not absolutely necessary, but there are certain things that Ricky does quite well that I have no idea, and Ricky could spend a lot of time trying to educate me, much to his frustration, because I'm not really trainable with respect to those things, like putting it on Spotify and,
right.
and those sorts of promotions. You know I'm not good at that, and you know I'm really not going to devote the time to learning that. But I'm not talking about this assignment of tasks. You're absolutely correct. If you're assigned the task, then I need to keep my mouth shut. That doesn't mean I can't ask questions.
Right.
But it means I got to let you do what you're assigned to do, and vice versa. But it's that overall. Well, I'll give a real world example. So we've got a partner on one of our Verbos at the lake, right? He's never gone to the house. Okay, he's never obviously contributed other than the money up front. Okay, he put in half, we put in half, and now he's talking about, well, I want better accounting, right? I want more reports from the house, because the house makes a decent amount of money, unless you're the Internal Revenue Service, and it loses its ass. So, and it's like, we've had this house together for 3 years, and I'm pretty pissed. It's like, screw you. Why don't you come down to the lake? Why don't you do this? Show me where the house is, all right? Find the house. I'll follow you. And if you can find the house, then I'll start giving you reports, okay? But it's pissing me off because I'm doing all the work, really Jill is, and now he's demanding accounting reports? What are you implying? That we're ripping you off somehow? And so we were talking earlier, Jill and I were, about, man, I screwed up in not having a good exit strategy, right? Because if I would have said to him at the time that everybody was hugging it out when we were buying the house, because we, meaning Jill and I, negotiate a good deal on the property, if I would have said to him at any time in the first 5 years, we can buy you out so long as we pay you 15% per year interest, okay? So you put in 50 grand, we'll pay you 15% per year. That's a great investment.
Absolutely.
Right? He would have gone for it. But I didn't anticipate that we were going to have this friction down the road. And this coming from somebody who prides himself on anticipating those problems for clients.
And what's scary is right now, the property is bearing fruit.
Right.
Life's good.
Sure.
What happens when it stops bearing fruit? It goes to a down. That's when you see the true identity of a business partner.
Yeah.
Where are they when their feet is held to the fire?
Well, the thing is that because now I've got this nagging, it makes me not want to put all that effort into the house.
Of course not.
Right? And when you have a house that's grossing $75,000 a year, if we put our foot off the gas, not even on the brake, but off the gas, we can make that go down to 55 real quick. And we wouldn't do it out of spite, but we do it out of, dude, we own a bunch of houses on our own without partners. We'll focus on those.
You make more money there.
Right. So sometimes you just, again, all I can say is anticipate that if you're getting married, anticipate that this person who's about to be your spouse is a known player, all right? And you better get all those issues out in front, right? Don't assume that this is going to be a wonderful marriage. I know that's a bad analogy, but it's the best I got, in the sense that if you don't address heavy issues up front with a partner, then, like I said, don't be surprised that you're surprised down the road.
Right. And then getting out of it's the hardest part.
Right, absolutely.
When it stops when it stops being a partnership, now it's an obligation.
Right, feels like a job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it isn't a job
Sure.
in your business, but it should feel like you're working towards a common goal.
You know, like Jeremy said to me that he owns a South Bend store. He goes, no matter how bad things were when we were incomplete, he goes, we were always pulling from the same end of the rope.
Sure.
And that's key.
Yeah, just this morning, Chris and Mark, my strategic partners that own MarginWise Consulting and Schefker Creative, were thinking about buying the building across the street. Locust Business District is going to be the next place that's hopping in St. Louis once this Major League Soccer stadium gets completed. And like I said, St. Louis will have fun with that for 10 years before they completely screw it up and the Major League Soccer team moves somewhere else.
Oh, I hope not.
We'll have another empty stadium in town. But the thing is that, we're talking about, okay, so this is my plan for the building based upon the scalability of my law firm, right? And I'm assuming that they're thinking the exact same thing, right? Until I stopped myself and said, well, no, wait a second. If you're not thinking about scaling your business, maybe this buying of this building is not the best thing, right? And I was pleased to learn that they want to scale it, but they want to scale it with low overhead, like I do, right? I don't want to scale it where, I will never have another lawyer as my partner, ever, okay? But I'll have a lot of associates that'll make a ton of money.
Yeah.
And so I needed to be, it's easy to assume that someone who you get along with is thinking the same thing, but that's not always the truth.
And and that's like a lot of my conversations I have right now with Jeremy and Tyler are, this is where we want to go. Mm-hmm. So they know the structure of how many stores we want to add. And even on the call this morning with Tyler, he's like, I'm all about building the brand. And I'm like, absolutely, because he knows we want to get to 100 stores by 2030.
Yeah, sure.
If I don't communicate that to them,
yeah,
they'll never help me get there. And then they won't understand the overall vision of why you're building the brand the way you are and protecting it.
And they want to understand why you're making the decisions you're making.
Right, yes.
Yeah. No, I agree. And so the other thing, and it all seems obvious until you don't do it, and I've been guilty of not doing it, and that is, and you got to revisit, right? You got to revisit once every quarter or once every month or at least once every year and say, look, this is where we've been, this is where we're going, and do we still share the same vision?
Absolutely.
Right, which then goes back to you better have an exit strategy when your vision starts, misaligning.
Right.
It's a lot to take in, but for anyone who is contemplating bringing a partner in, whether it's a money person or just someone who's going to contribute labor, etc., these are the hard issues that you're going to have to deal with, and deal with them up front as much as possible, because once you turn a venture into work, real work, then you've made a huge mistake, waste of time, waste of money, and perhaps the loss of a friend.
Absolutely.
So, all right, so we're going to start with Cassandra here. Cassandra, please explain your business just from a 30,000-foot level. Then we'll take you back to your beginning, and we've got a lot of questions for you.
Sure, you got it. So the best way to explain what I do is my elevator speech, which is large corporations have a marketing department. Mm-hmm. Medium-sized businesses have often a full-time marketing person or a small marketing team. And then there's everyone else, sure, which makes up such a large percentage of the businesses in America. So they're small to medium businesses, and they need so much help, but don't necessarily have the revenue to go out and hire someone full-time. So that's where I came up with my business model, which was to insert myself as much or as little as needed for business owners.
Yeah. Okay, so the size of business, and everybody has a different opinion. I went to a franchisor conference one time, and there was a class for emerging brands. And I go, well, that's for me, right? Emerging brands, all right? And then I get in there, and first 5 minutes, I realized that their definition of an emerging brand is someone over 500 locations, but under 1,500 locations, okay? And that's my definition of we have done, did, emerged, okay? So when you say smaller businesses, what is the sweet spot for you?
You know, I don't think there's a perfect answer for that because every business's needs are very different. So a lot of it is going to depend on what their marketing, plan looks like, what they still need, what pieces they need to that puzzle.
Sure.
So it's not necessarily the size of the number of locations or the number of employees or years in business even. I have clients that have been in business for over 50 years, and then I have clients that are startups.
Sure.
So it really just depends on, it's very customized to what they're looking for.
Okay. And so if you had to describe the type of marketing that you focus on for your clients, how would you describe it?
In one word, digital.
Okay.
Right? So, I'm typically coming in and looking at the entire strategy, what their branding looks like, what they still need. And then we, obviously, if you're in business, you want to make sure that you're online. How does your website look? Is it integrated with your social media? Are you doing, what kind of an audience do you have? And how can we make sure to constantly put you in front of those individuals and then new prospects as well?
Sure. And when you go in and you talk to a business that you don't represent, a candidate for you, what are some common themes with respect to businesses, whether it's, the inability to really reach their target, maybe to even define who their target is, the refusal to spend the money that it takes to get their brand out there? What are some common problems that you see?
Let's see here. Everybody has a little bit of all of those things.
Sure.
So it's a lot of times people want to cast the net too wide.
Right.
And if you're casting the net really wide, then you're not going to really penetrate the prospective market that you want.
We talked about that, niche versus general, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how much more money you can make focusing on your niche.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can't just show ourselves or our business to somebody one time and make an impression. We have to show it to them, 10, 11 times before we start to make an impression.
Right. Yeah.
Well, sounds like you guys have it covered.
Yeah. No, we had Tim Bird on a couple of episodes
That's right,
ago. And what did he say about impressions? 20 impressions or something like that? It was way up there. Yeah.
The number climbs every year.
Yeah.
Every month, probably. I mean, it's just incredible.
Just because there's just more and more advertisement out there?
We're constantly overloaded with information.
Yeah.
I mean, in the matter of, if you scroll through any social media feed, imagine how many times you're seeing ads. How many
Sure.
ads do you see? If you drive down the highway, how many advertisements do you see? Watching TV, listening to the radio. I mean, we could keep on going.
Sure.
But the number of podcasts that are telling you what you should know about, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
There's
information.
only one that I'm familiar with that has good information.
I agree.
The only one that matters, really, Eric. So.
Yeah, so, that's the thing that frustrates me so much is, and maybe I'm not the typical consumer, but I call it the white noise of advertising, right? Great example. Last night, my wife and I were watching something called The Good Doctor. I don't know if you've seen it on Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
Great show. And, because it's on Hulu, you suffer through the advertisement, right? Well, I don't suffer through them. I hit mute, right? Or pause. Well, you can on Hulu. You got to actually watch it. But I hit mute, go down, get a drink, and by the time I come back, okay, I'm in my third. Hulu's only got 3 ads each time. I'm in my third, and I go into the show. And again, I don't know if that's typical consumer behavior, but that's the thing that just surprises me is that so many people are still spending so much money on ads, which I'm just not sure are effective.
Well, you should upgrade your Hulu package.
Costs money.
Get rid of the ads, first of all. But I hope that Hulu sends me some money for that. But the other piece of that, not that I want to interrupt in your drink
please.
getting time, but, upgrade Hulu. But it's also some traditional forms of advertising they are built to cast a net.
Sure.
So if you are just needing to get numbers,
Yeah.
meaning you're a household item, right? I want to sell aluminum foil to every person in the,
Sure.
that drives down Highway 40.
Yeah.
Perfect. Let me throw a billboard up. But if you are really targeting a specific demographic, or
Right.
or just for the moment in your marketing plan, you've decided that you want to expand this particular audience. I want to go after this demographic. Then that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And it's very cost effective, right?
Yeah.
To do niche advertising, to go, let's create this messaging, because I'm not going to talk to the masses.
Right.
I want to talk to you guys. I
Sure.
want to know, this is what you have in common with me. This is how I can serve you. And if I'm solving a problem for you,
Right.
then it's an easy business transaction. So I want to stop becoming white noise.
Sure.
And instead, I want to talk to you. And
Yeah.
my marketing message has to speak to you and solve a problem that you have. And maybe you didn't know you had it the first time you heard it.
Sure.
But the point is, and what the well-crafted marketing message and marketing plan is, we're coming and we're telling you what we can do to make your life better in some way.
Sure.
And Cassandra, you can dive into this. You can find those people with the analytics that Facebook offers, and then
Sure.
and you know how to really go after that niche person.
Absolutely. I mean, there's some limitations, and with social media advertising and just the way that the political spectrum has gone, it's limited a little bit. Since 5 years ago, it looked a lot different. But you just have to make sure that you're being careful not to discriminate anyone, because there's a lot going on in that level. But absolutely, you can take an existing audience and retarget them through social media. You can take your current website audience and keep reserving them more information about you. Right? Those serves become much more valuable than an initial advertising, right, on Hulu that you put on
Sure.
mute.
So we're going to get much more into the weeds, but the one ad that I did remember last night, I don't even remember what it was for, but Charles Barkley was in it, and he's standing there with a bunch of 3-foot kids. Charles is 6'8", 6'9", and a little white girl says, "We picked Mr. Barkley," and he goes, "I still got it." Right? They were picking him to play, picking sides to play basketball. I love that guy. That guy could sell me anything.
Absolutely.
He's so funny. But I don't know what it was for, but I remember the commercial, and I was rolling, right? Okay, so let's go more basic. So if I said social media marketing, I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about. Okay, so what is social media marketing? Meaning, let's start with, what are the platforms that a entrepreneur should be considering in 2021?
The platforms that they should be on are based on their business.
Okay.
So it depends on what you do and what you can be consistent with. So if you're hiring somebody to do it for you, clearly you can kind of control that consistency. But you're busy helping clients with their legal matters,
Right.
correct? So you making sure that you're getting on Instagram on a regular basis may be a challenge for you.
Sure.
You're not walking around taking pictures and things like that. But you're helping business owners and entrepreneurs. So for you, I would say, make sure you're on LinkedIn.
Sure.
Make sure you're on Twitter and Facebook. And, there's so many different platforms. But I would say, look at everything and what can we make sure? Where is your audience? That's where you want to be. And can we make sure that we can consistently craft a message to keep you relevant on that platform? And, it goes a little deeper, talking about algorithms and making sure that you're putting information out there that's being engaged with, interacted with by the consumer. Because
Right.
if your audience is engaging with your content, now the social media platform, regardless of which one it is, says, oh, people like that, we're going to show them more of this.
Sure. Yeah, and we've talked about this. I've tried to sell legal services using Facebook, and it was a lot of apparently wasted money. Although Facebook was telling me how well my ads were doing, it's like, look, dude, I know if my ads are doing well if I'm getting business. Don't tell me about how many impressions I've made unless those impressions are converting into cash, right? But let's take them one by one. So, for example, Instagram, all right, which is something that I didn't even know what that was a month and a half ago, and now I try to post regularly on Instagram. What am I trying to do? And I understand it may vary by the business. Am I just trying to get my brand out there in front of people, or am I trying to drive them to my website? And again, I know these sound like false, stupid questions, but they're real questions.
Sure.
What am I trying to do by Instagram, for example?
Sure, and there are no stupid questions. Marketing, I think about in my sleep, but other people, it's a different world.
Sure.
So on Instagram, for example, you're using that for branding. I would definitely say for branding, you want to make sure that you're staying relevant. You're showing any audience that you have on there that you're an expert in your field.
Sure.
That you're an expert in their field,
Sure,
right?
right.
Because you're helping these entrepreneurs
Sure.
to protect their businesses, their assets,
Sure.
and to achieve their goals. So I think with you, it would be sprinkling out information that just reminds people on a consistent basis that that's what you do, that's what you're there for.
Sure.
People don't need to hire an attorney every single day,
Right.
but it's typically as soon as they need one,
Sure.
they want to know exactly who to call.
Yeah.
We would like for them to have themselves protected in advance, of course,
Sure.
but so what we want to make sure is I call social media often like it's tap on the shoulder marketing, right? So
Okay.
I'm sure Ricky's heard me say that 1,000 times. And it's constantly putting information out there, playing the algorithm to make sure that your information is actually delivered to
Sure.
those people. And then as soon as it's time for them to contact somebody, you're the one in their mind.
Sure. Okay, good. So go ahead, Ricky. I'm
Yeah, I was
sorry.
just gonna, and so like, explain what you've done for me. Like, what do we do? Because we were on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
And we've changed our message over the past 3 years.
Yeah, a lot. So Ricky's objective was foot traffic in the stores, 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
5 years ago. And so we were talking about community and community events that you guys were hosting in different cities. We were talking about products and trying to reach different demographics, right? Hey, we can service people that aren't just, these hulks in the gym. We can also help that soccer mom that's trying to lose 15 pounds and just be in good shape, right? So we had different messaging that we would rotate through to
Sure.
try and get more people in the store.
Okay.
That was our objective.
Yep.
Okay.
There was a time where we were trying to, get people to the website. That was also so the strategy is very different depending on what your objective is.
Okay. All right.
And now we've changed our message.
Absolutely. So now we're trying to talk about the brand, the vision of franchising Nutrition HQ.
Sure.
And it's
being
really
your own boss.
being
Yeah.
your own boss, and it's Ricky's vision that Ricky has learned so much over the years,
Sure.
and how he wants to share that opportunity with people. So now our messaging is completely
Yeah.
different than what we were doing 5 years ago.
Yeah, interesting. So algorithms, I've heard Ricky talk about it, and again, I just don't know what that means. Okay, my 18-year-old daughter says, "Oh, you got to put a whole bunch of pound this, pound that, right?" Afterwards, right? And it's like, okay, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
I got a pound what?
Here, hashtag Ricky.
Hashtag.
Hashtag Ricky, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Okay? So I'm putting all these hashtag or pounds. There was a joke about pound, and I can't remember it. It's probably a good thing because it wasn't all that funny, probably. Unless you have a junior high school sense of humor, which I know I do.
I think you both do.
So tell me about these algorithms. What does that even mean?
So an algorithm is a mathematical equation,
Okay.
right? So these companies and computers that are smarter than all of us put together,
Right.
they create algorithms and they plug and play different numbers and letters in, right? So just think of a mathematical equation.
Okay.
Their objective with that algorithm is to give the consumer, the user of that platform,
Okay.
exactly what they want,
Okay.
so that they will continue to come back and consume more content.
Okay, so, and that's why, I guess if you're going to throw a wide net, that's why my 18-year-old is making me put all these hashtags, because she's trying to get me noticed by enough whatever audiences that I might be relevant to. I don't know. Am I saying that correctly or no?
So hashtags are actually searchable. You can search by a hashtag.
Oh.
So if I wanted to know more about Talking Risks, I
Right.
could hashtag Talking Risks, then I could pull up all of the posts that were affiliated with that.
Could you?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
That's fine. All right.
So then I could get information if I wanted to, any hot topic that's going on right
Right.
now, right? Any trending topic.
Sure.
You can search by a hashtag.
Okay, I got you. All right, so let's move over to Twitter, which still has me baffled, right? So I post the same thing I post on Instagram, I post on Twitter, only with fewer words, right? Because I still got to fit in the hashtags, right? And they're only giving me so many characters, right? But the interesting thing is, I find, at least for me, that Instagram, I get a follower a day. Twitter, I really don't get that many followers, right? And I don't know if that's because Twitter is not as effective as Instagram, not used as much. But explain Twitter, if you will, and how you can use that. I'm sure I'm misusing it.
Well, you're right. You have to say it in a shorter amount of time. There are different industries that Twitter seems to be really effective for.
Okay.
I don't typically play in those industries, right?
Okay.
So those are obviously politics. It's big in politics.
Yeah.
So since I'm not representing anyone in the
Right.
political sphere, I thankfully,
You weren't handling Trump's Twitter account?
surprisingly, he was doing it himself, I believe.
What keyword was?
There is no spell check. There is no spell check on Twitter. I go slow, so I'm not saying something
As you
stupid.
should, as you should. No matter what platform
Right.
you use, please think before you post, people. So Twitter, you're saying things in shorter bursts, right?
Right.
It's easy to have quick conversations with people. I am not a huge Twitter user myself. I
Right.
use it for clients, but they can easily retweet something if it's relevant, commenting back and forth. It's not my favorite platform by far. So I don't want to say that it isn't relevant for
Sure.
you. It's just not been a platform that's been incredibly relevant for my clients.
Sure. Yeah. Do you use Twitter at all? Do you tweet?
I don't tweet.
You don't tweet?
No. I go on and read stuff because it's comical.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a great quick way. A lot of corporations have done a good job of making their Twitter account a very quick way to get service, right? So if you tweet an airline or something like that, there's a good chance you're going to get a response because their social media team is active.
Oh, okay.
And that goes back to the hashtags. So actually, when Kobe Bryant died,
Yeah.
the first place I went was Twitter
Yeah.
Oh,
to verify it.
okay. Right.
Because it happens so fast. People are so quick on it.
They are.
That's
Now, it's
interesting.
not always accurate, but it is
Well, now that you bring that up, like sporting events, they're tweeting
absolutely.
live deals,
Yep.
right? But somehow they've got it figured out that they can tweet a video
Yeah.
or tweet a link,
Yeah.
Sure.
right? Which I guess you can do,
Sure.
right? Because I saw it yesterday with the trial up in Minneapolis concluding. That's the first thing that was on my Twitter feed
Yep.
is they were going to announce the verdict, etc. So, okay, so tell me about the. It seemed like there was, at least I've heard, there's a demographic difference between those who use Facebook and those who use Instagram. All right, so before I had to even think about pushing marketing messages out on social media, I had a Facebook account like everybody else, and saw what you had for lunch and whatever, right? Most people.
And how great your relationship is.
How great your relationship is, how smart your kids are, right? How you just bought another new car, right? And whatever else you want to lie about today, for sure. So, but there, I got the impression that there is a bit of a demographic difference between regular Facebook users and, say, Instagram users.
Yes. So that's That is the overall consensus, correct? There have been the average age frame getting on Facebook has definitely gone up, right? Facebook has been around for, well, gosh, I can't remember what year it was founded. I know that 2008-ish is probably when I got really active. So it's been a long time.
Sure.
So now that's where you're sharing things about your families, right? So now families can stay in contact, aunts and uncles and grandparents, and so the demographic is older.
Right.
However, and people say that to me often, well, we shouldn't be on Facebook because the demographic is older, and if that's not who our client is. But I often say don't dismiss it,
No, because they have money.
It's an incredibly huge demographic of people.
Sure.
My nieces and nephews are on Facebook. They're
Yeah.
not only on Facebook. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on TikTok. So that's the other thing. You can't I would never be on just one platform.
Right. And just because they're not posting doesn't mean they're not watching.
They are consuming content.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which I always find interesting, right? It's like people will like stuff, right, that you post, but you never really see them. The last time they posted was 2015.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Personally,
But
I
they're
rarely
there.
post.
But they're there looking at your stuff,
Absolutely.
right?
All day
Nosing.
long. I spend my life on social media, but I
Right.
rarely post anything.
So
Yeah.
you're like a construction guy. He'll work all day at the construction and building stuff. When he gets home, he is not doing any home repairs.
Guilty. Absolutely.
So I have in the past Facebook, and again, I believe, rightfully or wrongfully, that Facebook didn't do much for society, okay? And if you don't believe me, go and make a post today. Say, hooray for Joe Biden, and just wait. Or say, hooray for Donald Trump, right? Half your family's going to disown you by the end of the evening. So it didn't seem to do much for us as a society, although that was probably already there.
I think so. I was going to say that. I think it was there. It just gave us
Brought to
a
the
voice.
surface. Yeah.
And with a mask, right? We're all behind a computer screen.
Right, a voice with a shield. Otherwise, I'll pop you in the nose.
Right.
But so I did some advertisement in the past on Facebook, and they give me back these analytics, right? And they, again, I talked about it. They gave me, oh, you've made this many impressions and whatnot. I mean, how's a small business owner supposed to figure that out? I mean, other than measuring it by revenue, and then he or she doesn't even know if the revenue came from Facebook. People used to say, well, how did you hear about us, right? And I don't even know if people answer that question or answer it, truthfully, or even remember how I heard about this, that, or the other thing. I've never asked a client, how did you hear about me? Usually they tell me I've been referred by so-and-so. But
Those answers are always weighted. It's the last place they heard about you is going to be the answer, or what meant the most. I'll give you a real quick
Interesting.
example.
Yeah.
So, producing wedding shows, I
Yeah.
would advertise all over the place.
Yeah.
The radio, social media, direct mail, phone call, you name it.
Sure.
And then when people would come to the wedding show, I would say, how did you hear about us?
Right.
And I remember one specific instance where this bride-to-be said, oh, my mom. And I was like, okay, great. Mom's.
Where'd she
Mom.
hear about
That
us?
was
Right.
weighted.
Yeah.
Mom's recommendation to go to this event was much more
Sure.
important. She's filling out her paperwork, and then she looks back up and goes, well, my mom saw a billboard. And I was like, thank you. I never
Right.
usually get to that level, but it was weighted. Mom was
Sure.
much more important than the billboard.
Right.
Sure.
Well, Tyler and I had this conversation this morning because we were talking about getting the name out about franchising. I'm like, we got YouTube going now. We've got Facebook going. We got LinkedIn going. Instagram. I said the podcast. And Tyler was like, yeah, I think all that's good. And he said, think about it in Quincy. You'll hear my ad on the radio. We run very little radio, but it still works. You have to be effective. Then they may see a Facebook post, and then they may be at the grocery store and see a Nutrition HQ t-shirt.
Right.
It's just that repetition, just
Yeah.
burning it into their
Absolutely.
brain.
Sure.
They're top of mind.
Yeah.
And so when the timing is right that they need that service or that product, they know where to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in data, right, and in analyzing the data. A couple of challenges is if you don't know how to read that data, or if you don't trust the data. I mean, Facebook would tell me all the time, look at what a marvelous job this ad's doing, and it's like, again, I was probably trying to sell the wrong stuff on Facebook. Although, you know, people are selling real estate via Facebook, or at least they're advertising it. Automobiles, I mean, these are not small purchases that they're advertising on Facebook. I just never had someone come to me and say, I saw you on Facebook. But again, like you said, they may have seen me on Facebook, and that might have subconsciously led them to say, well, I ought to give this guy a shot because I know he's out there and he seems like a decent person. So who knows? But that's so frustrating because you're spending money. Mm-hmm. Money's limited. Your ad spend, I assume, is limited. No one comes to you and says you spend as much as you want.
Absolutely.
Right? And so how does a business owner, make sense of all of the data? Or does it just come down to, are my sales up? And if they are, I must be doing something right, which I hate. I would hate if that's the strategy, because that doesn't seem like a strategy. I would want to know, is it the billboards that have my revenue up, right, and I'm wasting money on all this other stuff? How do you begin to make sense of all that data?
Quantifiable data is the most amazing tool that we have in business.
Right.
Unfortunately, the data is perfect science to
right,
a point.
Right.
But actually getting the consumer to give you that information, if it is not an online transaction,
okay,
you can't always know exactly where that person is coming from. And I have a lot of clients that there's no way to know without relying on that particular client saying to you, hey, I saw your ad on Facebook, or I saw a billboard, or wherever we've been advertising and marketing for them. It's a consistent message. Yes, we have to look at the goals and the revenue year after year, and I do hope that they're always asking, where did you hear about us? Because if we know consistently, if we're getting the same answer, then we should probably lean in that direction more.
Sure.
Also, I always want every single business owner to hear a referral. A friend told me that they got great service from you, or that they got a great product. I mean, the referral business, I always said if I could bottle up word of mouth, it would be worth gold. That's kind of what social media did.
I got you.
If I go all the time, I'm sure you've seen this once I remind you, how often have you been on social media and it says, hey, I need a recommendation for a dentist? And then the feed fills up. That thread is full of dentist recommendations. I have the best dentist in the world, right? Yeah. That is word of mouth bottled up on the internet.
Well, that's a good point.
Right. Unless you're getting the recommendation from me. People post in our neighborhood. It's like, I need someone to do my nails. What do you recommend? I said, a nail place. I really, my hairdresser quit. I need a hairdresser. Where do you recommend I go to get my haircut? Haircutter.
I'm stylist.
I'm not very helpful. I usually follow that up with, I hope this helps.
I know it never does, but...
All right, so let's talk about something that is certainly interesting to me. And Ricky, you and I have talked about this, and we've not really, I think, spent the money that we should. I just got the premium last month, and I'm looking for a marketing assistant right now to execute some programs that I think I've developed for LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. LinkedIn has always just been there, right? And it was like, originally I thought of it as the business Facebook, right? Almost. Right. And I really think that that's doing it a disservice. I just purchased the premium service last month, and the data that you can farm from the premium service, it's amazing. The example we talked about on the podcast a couple of times ago is I know this person. He's a friend, I guess, whatever friends mean in 2021, who runs a franchise brokerage network. And I can get a lot of business from franchise brokers. And I approached him because he's my friend, and I said, hey, I've got a special to help your brokers close more deals. It's going to be good for me, but it's going to be good for your brokers too. And he sent me back a membership package, right? He wanted me to spend $2,800, and he said, there is no way you're getting to my brokers unless you become a member, right, for $2,800. So for $80, I got on LinkedIn, and I entered franchise broker and the name of his network, and I had all of his brokers in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? It's a pretty powerful tool.
It is. It's a very powerful tool.
Yeah. And so what's your recommendation? I mean, I think this is not just what would be considered professional services. I mean, there's a lot of people who are interested in advancing their profession, obviously. So they're consumers, they're spending money. What is your recommendation to businesses with respect to LinkedIn generally, and maybe give some examples of specific campaigns that people should be considering on LinkedIn?
On LinkedIn, which is one I've had to dive into more lately as well, because I think I often always thought of it as the Facebook for business as well.
Yeah, I think it's more powerful than that.
It's very powerful. And I've spent a great deal of my adult life diving through the demographics and the targeting of Facebook. So talking real quick, I'm going to revert back to the data available there can be easily dismissed, but it can be exceptionally powerful. So I've been doing some campaigns with lead generation campaigns on Facebook and Instagram recently with unbelievable results. And this is hard data, lead forms, new leads in the system. It's been amazing.
Sure.
And you can do the same if you want to take that strategy and you move it over to LinkedIn. I mean, it's going to be a different audience, right? Your goal is to contact and make connections with
referral sources
and entrepreneurs in general, franchisors, right? So showing your value to them, I would say organically, your strategy should still be to show on your feed that you're what you can do for them in little nuggets of information, right? We're never giving an entire sales presentation in a single post. We take our posts or whatever it is that you're wanting to tell them, and you break it down into pieces, and then you just schedule those out so that you're constantly, like I said earlier, tapping them on the shoulder with little bits of information. I often find myself ignoring advertisements as well because I do them all day long, and so to think of them, so I probably digest information differently than most consumers. The in-mail messaging has been a pretty cool road that I walked down with Ricky recently because of the demographic on LinkedIn, because I can see exactly where you work and target you based on your education and your work experience and things like that. So when we talk about niche and you want to dive into exactly who I want to send this message to, if you're wanting to pay LinkedIn to deliver that, you can target it so well that it's money well spent. Again, it has to convert. So we need to be able to track that data and convert. And if it's, I always say, we try something out, and if it doesn't work, then we're going to try something different. Maybe we don't always jump platforms, but we rework the Play-Doh, right? We're going to just reinvent what we're doing and try that. Maybe it's remessaging, maybe it's a different showing ads and in-mail versus in their feed, lots of different things. So there's never a one-size-fits-all for anyone. Yeah,
and so the in-mail, as I understand it with LinkedIn, the strength of that is it's supposedly read. And I will read a message. The thing I can't stand on LinkedIn is those form messages that LinkedIn gives you, okay? So when I started my firm, I got 2,500 messages, right? Congratulating me on the move, right? With the exact same language, right? Or the form message that says, I noticed you on LinkedIn. It appears we have many of the same connections. Let's discuss. It's like, dude, if you don't think enough of me to actually draft a personal email to me, I'm not interested in talking to you, right? So talk about that, because there are so many form advertisements, right? I get, how I'm both a CPA and a lawyer, so I get them from two different groups, right? We can help you generate more leads as an accountant. We can help you generate more leads as a lawyer. Maybe they can, but they'll never get my business. When they're approaching me on LinkedIn and they've sent me a form email, again, it becomes white noise. I just go through that and I really dismiss them. I guess somebody's buying based upon that, but it would seem to me that it's not a very careful consumer who's buying based upon an obvious. I mean, I might as well buy an extended car warranty tonight at 9 o'clock when that guy calls me.
Absolutely.
Right. So how do you personalize your message, really make it stand out in that sea of still impersonalized? I think people want to press a button and they want it to result in business. And I just don't think, at least for me, that's not how it works. I wish it was.
I don't think it works like that for anybody.
No, I would buy the button if it actually worked that way.
Right.
Like the easy button?
Yeah, the easy button.
And the only one who's buying that theory, that philosophy, are the people who want a button. Right?
Sure.
But it's no more than a get-rich-quick scheme. I mean, so it seems.
Yeah, but I think the main thing is, and Cassandra, you're saying this, is it's just all about consistent messaging.
Absolutely.
On multiple platforms, constantly tapping on the shoulder.
Constantly.
So that inbox message is another little tap.
The inbox message is another little tap, and it needs to be personalized. So let me go back to one of the first things that you had mentioned, which was the congratulations on your move, right? So those are pre-filled, and you can change it. If I want to send you a message on LinkedIn when you make a move, I can say, I can just click, yep, send that, because it's fast and it's easy, and they've done the work for me.
Sure.
Or I can just say, congratulations on Aspen Legal.
Right.
Great job.
Exactly.
So it's not LinkedIn's fault that people aren't taking the time to craft
I get it. I responded to several of those going, I see we have many of the same connections. The same stupid email back. Of course, nobody responded back. They just like, what an asshole.
I promise anyone listening to this is going to think twice before they hit that.
Thank you for that personalized message. I said you're one of 1,000 people that have thought of the exact same words.
I just love the congrats on your work anniversary.
Exactly.
I mean,
doing that?
That's hilarious.
Right.
Work anniversary. You can make... So... You should never look for one solution to anything, correct? No, you're never going to get all of your business from one platform, one method, one strategy. And if you do, you're probably not going to be around very long, right?
Sure.
So you always want to look in different directions. So regarding that, LinkedIn specifically, or any social media, I would always suggest, if you're doing a paid advertisement through social media or really anything else, you have to make sure that there's some organic information about you as well.
Right.
So that means don't completely ignore the fact that you have a LinkedIn and never post business information on there. I want you to post those nuggets of information, just helpful tips, because you're not going to give anything away that someone isn't going to come and need you to elaborate on, and they're going to pay you when they come into your office to elaborate, right? So don't be afraid of giving away information, because it's on Google, right?
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up. So I believe that very sophisticated purchasers, the very first thing they're going to do is they're going to Google you. And the more you can do, whether it's using LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever the heck it is, the more you can show up when someone searches you. I get clients telling me all the time, oh, I've got this person, they're going to invest in me. And this person has done this, and they've done this, and they're a billionaire with a B, and blah, blah, blah. What do you think the first thing I do? I Google them. And if they don't show up, I go, bullshit. They haven't done any of that.
Right.
Because you can't do that and stay under the radar.
Sure.
Right? And so to the extent that even those impressions create more of a chance for you to show up. Well, I'll give you another example. Years ago, I haven't done one for a long time, there was a PR web, and I'm sure there are other services like them, and you would do a press release.
Yep.
Because the media got savvy to it, right? You would try to get an interview with the media, but in the end it just read like an ad. So the media goes, no, dude, you're going to pay for that, okay? If it's just going to be a pitch, we got another department for that, right? But this PR web and others permitted you to do a press release, and then depending upon how much you paid, you would show up in people's blogs, and you would show up in people's newspaper, because they're looking to fill that space,
Sure.
right? They sell the ads first, and then whatever they got left, it's like, okay, we need some content, right? And I can't cook up the content myself. I'm too busy, so I'll just take this loser's, press release and put it in. And I did get some traction with that. Do people still do that, or is it, or is the advertising world now too sophisticated to really pick that up?
No, there's still absolutely media that will pick up a story. I mean,
Sure.
the local news is a great example. If it's a slow news day and you've
Yeah.
submitted a press release,
Sure.
It takes very little time actually to submit a press release,
Sure.
and if you already have the information available.
Right.
And I've had the local news show up to several of my events because it was a slow news day,
Yeah.
and I submitted a press release, and they wanted to come and cover it. So.
Sure.
It was great free publicity for
Sure.
us and everyone that was there. So it's absolutely, you can still do that. It is definitely more of a pay to play than it
Yeah.
used to be.
Sure.
So if you want to get covered in a newspaper, for example,
You
unless
better
you're
take some
buying an
ads.
ad,
Sure, of course.
it's unlikely, or you just have a good relationship, somebody owes you a favor, or maybe you just have an exceptional story.
Yeah.
And in which case news is still news to a certain degree.
Sure. Yeah, that's why I always tried to draft those press releases like they were a story. Right?
Sure.
This isn't just about us and what we've accomplished. This involves us, but it's more a story or more commentary on the industry or, what have you. And
The community.
Yeah.
But then you can turn around and repost that on every platform
Oh,
and
sure.
just layer it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
then that builds your Google and your search engine.
Yeah, I would attach those press releases
Yeah.
for the next year just to emails, just to get people to read it. So I think I got my money out of those things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I know this would vary completely by the business, but let's say a business is out there and they're trying to develop an advertising budget. Whether it's a percentage of their revenue or, and again, I know it's an unfair question because it would vary depending upon how much they want to commit, etc. But what do you think, if you're not willing to spend X on a social media campaign, or let's not call it a campaign, on social media advertisement over the course of a year, you're not going to get much traction. I mean, what do a lot of businesses budget for?
Well, they often ask me, "This is what I want to do. How much?
Sure.
How much can I do it for?"
Right.
And then we start here, and hopefully the revenue comes and starts generating, and we can
Sure.
end here
Sure.
because you get what you pay for when
Sure.
with digital advertising.
Right.
You're bidding for that placement.
Okay.
So you don't want somebody else that's going after the same audience to constantly outbid you.
Sure.
So you have to be careful with that. Oftentimes, because of I talk to my clients and we talk about their budget,
Right.
and then I try to maximize what we can do with their particular budget.
Okay.
So there's starting points, of course. Like
Sure.
you can't do a cost per click ad on Facebook for less than $5 a day.
Right.
But don't do $5 a day because you're not going to get the bid that you want. Right. You're
Sure.
not going to get the results that you're looking for. So if we can spend a little bit more and really watch that number, and that's what I do on the back end, is I'm constantly watching it to make sure that we're getting the most that we possibly can, the most ROI for them.
Sure.
So there's not a perfect number, but you knew that there wouldn't be.
Right.
And I don't, I think that businesses in general oftentimes will say they hold a certain percentage of their revenue for advertising and marketing, which is great.
Right.
But whatever that number is, then we have to take out, if you're hiring someone like me, there's a service cost.
Sure.
And then there's an advertising cost. And if we're actually printing anything, there's a collateral cost. I mean, so there's a lot of different pieces that we have to look at.
Sure. Yeah, so, and how does all of this differ from search engine optimization, which I'm still convinced is a freaking hoax. But how does all this differ from SEO? And the reason why I call it a hoax is two law firms ago, yeah, we paid a fortune for SEO, all right? And these eggheads said they knew how to figure it out, all right? And then when they came back and they gave us the report and they said, okay, all done, we need a check now, I got on the computer and I put franchise lawyer St. Louis. No, can't find myself. Franchise lawyer Eric Reese, St. Louis. No, can't find myself. It's like, I'm not sure this is really working. Yeah. And of course I said that, and the assholes that approved the $1 million budget, it's like, don't you tell us that we made a mistake. It's like, well, you made a mistake.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't have to have your social security number to find you via the internet. You know?
Absolutely, you should not. So I personally do not do social media because I have a very similar feeling about. I'm sorry,
right.
I don't do SEO. Thank you. Because I have a similar opinion of it.
Good. Then you can come back.
I've had a lot of clients spend a lot of money on it in the past with, very, very sad results.
Right.
Practically none to speak of, and it's. Everybody needs to be active, but if you try, and I'm not saying never invest in paid keywords and things like that. If your competitors are doing it, you should look at doing it too. But the cost that's involved in it is pretty extreme in many cases, and you have such little control.
Sure. Because
it's such a huge living thing that none of us actually know how the algorithms, how the buy-ins work on that.
Right.
I would say if anyone is going to buy SEO, paid SEO, and there's organic as well, which ties into your social media, and just like you said, anything you're doing online, including through your social media, the search engines are smart enough to read that now.
That's right.
So they're looking at what you're doing, and
even
that's going
PR web release,
You got it.
Yeah.
It will organically help you.
Yeah.
But we're specifically talking about paid SEO. Who you hire is the most important decision.
Yeah.
Because they can all buy the same keywords on Google, right? But hiring somebody that that you trust, that has a good reputation is priceless. It really is. It'll save you a ton of money.
I can tell you some people who
not to hire.
They're on a list, and it's called a shit list. All right, so we asked this question of everybody who's on, and it's unfair because there's 100 different things that you probably want to say. But if someone was starting a business or has a business and wants to increase their revenue, and you had to give them those golden nuggets of you really need to be focused on this, or you really need to at least look into this, which could be as simple as make sure you got a decent website. But what would those words be?
I would say to not cast the net too wide.
Yep.
To really have an idea of who your ideal customer is, and that's who you want to craft your messaging to.
Yep.
Because we try to please everyone, we please no one.
Yes.
So that would be
Well said.
Yeah.
That would be my piece of advice.
Yeah, which really echoes every guest that we've had, whether it was Munsock with Drunken Fish or Eric with Herbert and Gerbert, Brett. They're all the same. They have to know who they're after and really not focus on everybody else.
Right.
Because you'll spend a lot of time and a lot of money not making any sales if you're trying to be everything to everybody.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Ricky, any final thoughts?
Nope, I'm just best way to get a hold of you, Cassandra? If anybody wants to.
Absolutely. On the web, how would they find you?
Yeah, so our my web address is stlouismarketingconsultants.com, or my email is hello@stlouismarketingconsultants.com.
stlouismarketingconsultants.com. And she doesn't do any LinkedIn or Facebook advertisements, so you can't. I'm kidding.
I am the carpenter, right?
That's
so
right.
ironically, my last social post was that I'm working on everyone else's social media, so I don't have time to work on my own.
Awesome.
Like it.
But again, I'll state the obvious. They don't need to be in St. Louis to be your client.
No, of course not.
This is something that you can do from St. Louis, but do it everywhere. I mean, quite frankly, globally, but certainly nationally.
Sure.
Okay, fantastic.
Absolutely.
All right, Cassandra, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you
Cassandra.
for having me.
All right, Ricky.